Welcome to Astro Chat with Anne, Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monica Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with a respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hello and welcome back. It is time for another Astro Chat. We are talking about the new moon in Aquarius. Woohoo! Today it is myself, Kimberly Williams, and my amazing, wonderful professional astrologer cohort, Anne Sundell. And Monica, hello. We miss you. Look forward to seeing you the next time we're all together. We are looking at the new moon in Aquarius, which will be happening on February 9th here in the United States. If you live in the Central Time Zone, that's at 4:59 in the evening. Across the pond over in England, that would be 10:59. And if you live in Finland, you'll be getting it the following day on the 10th, early in the morning at 12:59 a.m. or 59 minutes into the day. So wherever you live, we encourage you to shift that to your time zone so that you can follow along. In a little bit, we'll bring up the chart and look at it together. But first, some things that are happening during the 2 weeks that we're looking at. We're looking at February 9th to, I believe it's the 24th, when we'll have the full moon in Virgo. So that 2-week kind of window, we have a whole lot of planets changing signs, ingressing, and especially into that Aquarian energy. We're going to have the moon, of course, is in Aquarius on the 9th and the following day. On the 13th, Mars will ingress into Aquarius, and a few days later, Venus joins on the 16th. The sun will be there until it leaves and goes into Pisces on the 19th. And Mercury is also hanging out in Aquarius until it goes into Pisces on the 23rd. So it's definitely an Aquarian kind of month. Before we dive into kind of breaking out what does all this mean, I think, Anne, you're going to start us off by talking about the Sabian symbol.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. And for this moon, the Sabian symbol will be for Aquarius 21. And it says a disappointed and disillusioned woman courageously faces a seemingly empty life. So this is a different Sabian symbol, I think. And I think this is also a different new moon with so much in Aquarius. This can talk for a bit of a maybe rocky month, surprises, maybe also insights, new insights that may or may not be in line with what you expected. It's not so easy to find the true inner meaning or direction, and with Aquarius we know that direction can change sometimes quite fast, and we might get some of these like genius ideas, or we might just like get the insight very suddenly of something that we might not have expected. Sometimes that might also be hard to face, I think, and to deal with. But with Aquarius, I also think that it's important that you stay true to yourself, and what is your authentic self, and what it's always about you versus the group.
Absolutely. And I think we were talking before we started recording about, what is it that brings about disappointment? And if we're dealing with all this Aquarian energy, it could very well be that we're holding on to the Capricorn concept, that sign that comes before Aquarius, that Capricorn concept of I'm going to follow on and follow through and be responsible and maintain the structures. And a lot of times those structures don't support us over the long term. Sometimes it's like we need to break down the structures that have been and move forward. And although disappointment is not a pleasant feeling, it can be one of the many things, one of those emotions that motivates us to recognize that it's time for change. It's time for me to become part of revolutionizing my life, how Aquarian is at. And and so I think what's important with this Sabian symbol is as much as we're feeling perhaps disappointment, and I like that part about bravely facing that disappointment, right? As we're embracing our Mars, as we're facing this disappointment, it's also about what are we going to do with that? What do we do with that emotion? How do we let it reinvigorate us so that we move forward? I think here it's much more about the reaction, the response, the action we take is more important than perhaps the stimulus that led us there. But it does sound like it's going to be quite the moving month.
Yeah, and all planets are moving forward right now. So there's this motion, which might also be felt like things are really speeding up, and maybe new opportunities arise, or different roads, directions are opening up. So I mean, there's a lot of new interesting energy. But with Aquarius too, I mean, you can stay a lot in your head with the ideas, or that can be many different ideas, and it's maybe hard to choose which one is the right one right now.
Yeah, I think that's an important point that everything is moving in direct motion. We don't get that very often. Usually there's at least one planet, if not more, who are retrograde. And we have them all direct for a while, right? It was last month, I think it was around the 27th or the 28th that Uranus went direct. And since then, we have them all direct until April 1st. And yes, April 1st, April Fools, we will have Mercury go retrograde, I believe it is. But that's 2 months of planets moving direct, not in shadow, picking up speed, moving forward quickly. And so I think it's going to be a very busy month. I always find that when planets are all direct, I wind up being exhausted at the end of that, right? It's that there's so many things to do because all the archetypal energies are pulling and activating us all at once. So every part of the chart, of the birth chart that's being illuminated by these transits, it's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I always think of the cartoon Gumby, being kind of pulled this way, that way. And it's hard to sometimes maintain the energy to get it all done. But that's the joy of the transits. It's about what we need to do right now. So
Yeah, and because this is like the second new moon this year, and the first was more like not going too fast forward. So now we really get the speed. So now it's time to go forward to
yeah.
move.
And let's honor the fact that this is also going to be the Asian Lunar New Year. I don't know much about Chinese astrology, but I do know it's going to be I believe it's the Wood Dragon is the year that's coming in. And just thinking about the idea of a dragon, I'm thinking that must have a lot of energy. And we're gonna see that here. So if anybody that joins us does practice or follow Chinese astrology, feel free to put some information in the comments, especially if you're watching us on YouTube, right? It's easy to comment and let us know a little bit more about how that maybe overlaps or ties into some of what we're seeing from Western astrology. I think I saw too that there was a free Saturday webinar through Kepler University. Sorry, I'm always changing their names up. And it should be available on their YouTube channel by now. And they were doing a talk about the wood dragon. I'm planning to watch that and learn a little more, expand my knowledge there.
That sounds interesting. I don't know either a lot about Chinese astrology, so that would be really cool.
Yeah. So let's dive in and talk about the fact that before we even look at the chart, that this is a new moon in Aquarius, right? Our annual most of the time once a year event. And the new moon in Aquarius, Well, first of all, it is a new moon. And if you have been following us, you know that all of us talk about working with the moon phases. New moons, regardless of the sign that they're in, tend to carry an energy about it's the beginning. It isn't about the beginning action. It's literally back up a second. It's the beginning. It's when we are downloading the energy of the transits of that day. We're downloading what it needs to happen over the next lunar month. We're we're taking that information in. It's a time where we might be connecting with our body and pulling that in. We might be working with our dreams. We might be journaling, but there's a very kind of internal type of energy, very appropriate to this time of year, right? Where, especially for those living in the more northern kind of climates, it's cold, it's still kind of dark, but yet you know that under the surface, under the ground, roots are happening and you know those seeds are doing things, are germinating. Life is happening. It's energy starting to quicken, but it hasn't come to the surface yet. So I think that new moons tend to mimic that energy a lot. And then with it being in Aquarius, what we are starting or beginning has to do with connecting with the authentic self, individuality, looking for freedom, figuring out what's holding me back from my authentic self, what's holding me back from feeling really free. How do I step into being liberated? These are all words that are often associated with that Aquarius energy. And so it seems to me that it's interesting how people in the Western world, especially, we tend to do a lot of goal setting for the year when we're in that Capricorn mindset. You know, people are doing it around the first, the new year, all of that. And then on the heels of that, here we are stepping into Aquarian energy, and it's almost like, hang on, let me reassess. Those goals were great. They might get me a promotion, they might get me some, you know, the end result I seek, but is that end result aligned with my priorities? Is this really what I want to be working on? So I find that the new moon in Aquarius is almost like a time to check in with ourself about where do I need to change or tweak things so that as I move into this new year, I'm doing it in alignment with my true authentic self. And there's so much more we could say about Aquarian energy, but I want to make sure I leave space for Anne for you to give your thoughts and for us to talk about other things. So, how do you like to work with the Aquarian new moon?
That's a good question. Like I talked to you about earlier, than how to predict Aquarius. You can't, and that's maybe the whole point. It's about surprises. It's about sudden U-turns or sudden insights or everything that's sudden and happens out of the blue. Aquarian energy is, I see it as also a lot of ideas, a lot of intellectual, and maybe sometimes we forget the emotional or the physical side. We're so caught up in that intellectual world and connecting with each other around ideas or around plans that we forget maybe to eat, or we forget what time it was. Or so I think it's also a good time to remember this basic world and don't fly away into those ideas too much either, because we have a lot of Aquarian energy, but it can be very great new insights and also like maybe some think about what type of excitement you want to have in your life and where you get inspired when you feel alive. I connect like the Aquarian energy also with that, the feeling of being inspired.
Yes. Yes, very much so. Very inspiring. And then also that ability to be forward focused, to pull ourselves out of what has been happening or what is currently happening and all the responsibilities of what we have to do to sustain the moment, but to look ahead of where we're headed. And I always feel that Aquarius energy is almost has like a psychic sixth sense. It's like you're able to momentarily, when you're in that space of Aquarius, we can momentarily step into the future, get a snippet, come back. Kind of how science fiction writers will write about things and then 20 years later those things that were fiction now are reality. It isn't that they created something totally new. They were able to create where it is we're headed. And so I kind of feel like when we're in that Aquarius zone, we can do that with our own lives. We can start to think about where do I want to be headed and really sense this is the path of where I want to be. This is how I see myself, and now what do I need to do to get there?
Yeah, so
Oh,
the brilliant idea goes into grounding, and then we have a plan.
yeah. All right, well, let's bring up the chart, and you can lead us into talking about some of the aspects we see happening this month.
Moon in Aquarius together with the Sun at 20 degree 40, and the ruler of this moon is in the modern astrological view Uranus, and it's squaring Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus has just also turned direct and is starting to catch some speed. So this will of course feel very, very important to me for this moon, that Uranus will give a bit more of this kind of maybe anxious feeling, that you need to do something, but you might be a bit like you're not sure how you're going to navigate this, but you just have a feeling about like something needs to be happening here, and it can be a restless energy, I feel. So it can be good to try to for example ground it by moving, by walking, if you feel that this is like restless. And I don't know, maybe you can organize your ideas by going for a walk outside, or by doing something more like grounding, like with writing them down, for example. But this is almost like the main aspect this moon is making. So it's not even making many aspects, which also leaves it a bit like unexpected, and which means that it's gonna be able to maybe go more like in and out with its energy this time. And that might also be more like you might feel a more intense feeling, and then it kind of fades away, and it's like, okay, that was something, and what was that? So I mean, it's hard to get this moon to get a grip on it with that Uranus aspect.
Definitely.
What do you think?
I love that. It's hard to get a grip on it. That is so apropos. And
And maybe also, you get like surprised by the feel, like, what was this? Like, this is something fast, and or this is maybe something I haven't experienced for a while, like some kind of surprise in the realm of feelings.
oh, there's a good point. Yeah, we were talking earlier about how, just expect the unexpected. You've got Uranus, and then it's the modern ruler of Aquarius, so it's dispositing this moon, and it's just you can't predict. You can't predict what's going to happen because it's the unexpected. Whatever you think it will be, that's not unexpected. It will be something else. But I love what you just said about unexpected emotions, because of that lunar influence coming forward. That wasn't something I was sitting with, and I think that's really important to make space for the feelings, the emotions that might be coming up. Yeah. There's also that harmonious aspect to the nodes. So we've got a sextile to Chiron and the North Node in Aries, and then the trine to the South Node in Libra. And I feel like this could be tapping into, where do I want to be heading? What do I want to do? Why is it painful for me to step into what I want to do? Which, brings up more of those emotional feelings. And, what have I done before? What is it that, who are the people I've done things with before? With that South Node being in Libra, I wonder if some of the unexpectedness that we're going to see has to do with partnerships or people coming or leaving. And I know we're going to talk about that a little more when we go into Venus and Mars, but I'm just throwing that out there, that some of this unexpected Aquarian energy could have a lot to do with the people in our lives as much as the feelings and the events.
Yeah, I feel the same. And when I think about Aquarius, I also think about like sudden flashes of feelings or abrupt like outbreaks of feelings, or that you suddenly maybe uh, face a emotional situation with someone that you didn't expect at all, like something, some kind of uh, different story than the one you thought it was
Yeah.
actually.
I think too, there's something about this entire journey of Uranus and Taurus for me has been a lot of learning to recognize where I am caught in resistance. That change comes from that Uranus, but it's in Taurus, and Taurus says, "No, I'm not changing. I'm changing at my own pace. I'm changing when it's my idea to change, not when the universe or other people are throwing things at me." And so there can be a lot of that kind of push-pull. I want to move forward, but I don't want to change. And um, so I feel like this is just one more moment in the continuum that's bringing that to the surface. The something needs to change. I may feel that I need to change, but that doesn't mean I'm willing. So looking at, our resistance to things could be really useful. And Aquarius is about community, your tribe. So this may be a very personal level type change, but it could also be what is the collective I'm in. So I'm thinking this might be a time where we see some new movements or old movements gaining speed or new movements kind of forming and starting as we come together with this is what I'm feeling and seeking out those people who are on that same page with us.
Yeah, this is awesome because I just came from a meeting with some other Nordic astrologers that want to have like an organization for astrologers here in the northern countries. And that's something that we don't have, not existing yet, but still, I mean, those ideas that are out there right now is really mirroring this energy that we see in this new moon too.
Oh, that's a gorgeous example. Oh, I love that. That would be fabulous too, because there's so much, such a wealth of information and knowledge in the Nordic, Baltic, other countries, and the more there's different organizations like that that can help coalesce and bring that forward, I think the better for not only those of you who live there, but those of us over here who want to hear some of that information and learn more. Awesome.
Yeah, I hope, but I think it has a really strong drive right now, and there's something that makes people come together around this idea. So it's interesting to see it in the astrology too.
Yeah. Oh, go Aquarius. Well, I know there's more we can say about all of this, but would you like to for me to move us into talking about Venus and Mars because there's a lot to say there as well.
Yeah, and we don't have enough Aquarius energy. We still need to have a few more planets there, right?
That's right. That's right. So we've got the sun and the moon and Mercury and Pluto all hanging out in Aquarius. And as I mentioned, on the 13th, Mars joins the group, and on the 16th, Venus joins the group. And as they enter Aquarius, it's not just going to be Mars and Venus entering Aquarius. So a whole lot going on in terms of relationships, in terms of figuring out who are the people I can be my authentic self with, who are the people I'm not my authentic self with. I find that when Mars and Venus are in Aquarius, it's a great for ideas, networking kind of connections and relationships. But the more intimate personal ones, it can be a little hard because sometimes we're so in our head, we can become alienated from the people close to us. We can, forget to communicate, to feel, to emote. So intimate personal relationships can be a little challenging, whereas the larger social relationships might be a little easier. So that can be kind of a thing we need to balance. But as soon as it goes in, it's going to be doing an exact conjunction with Pluto, who's currently hanging out at yay, 0 Aquarius. Pluto that has given us a breather and left Capricorn and is going to be in Aquarius for 6 months. Woohoo! So great. Here's our first kind of major contact, if you will, transit contact happening with Pluto. And it also, shortly after that, I think we said, all right, so the 13th and 16th, they're moving in, they're making their contacts with Pluto. And if I remember right, it's like the 25th of the month, they're going to have moved far enough along because all these planets have speed. They're all direct. It'll have moved far enough along in Aquarius to be at that 10-degree mark, and it will be making an exact square with Jupiter. So, yeah, so we have the conjunction of Venus and Mars in Aquarius to talk about the fact that they're going to be conjunct Pluto and that they're going to square Jupiter. Which one do you want to pull apart first?
None of them. Okay, I take Pluto. I always talk about Pluto like my favorite planet, so I take that.
Go for it.
Mars together with Pluto, that's some energy boost in a fixed sign like Aquarius. I mean, it's there might be things that are not expressed openly. There might definitely be some feelings of anger. There might be things that really energy that's bottling up around those two. In Aquarius, the outburst might be a bit different than usually. That's a good aspect also to really try to get out through like athletics or something, or a project that really needs focus and really intense focus, but it's an intense meeting with Mars and Pluto, and it might, I mean, it gets you feeling a bit suspicious of what's really going on that I might not know about, that's not so open. I mean, many times the Plutonian energy is not expressed directly. It's manipulation, or it's other forms of expression. So when Venus joins into with Pluto, we might see more like jealousy or things with Mars Pluto also, I think about power issues, struggles, but also with Venus, I think about power struggles. And especially if they are connected to relationship, or we have relationship issues, or we have something that we are not really sure about, then it can be good also to know that these days it will be more like volatile energy. So we can understand to try to get it working in another way, and not get too intense with it.
Good advice. Yeah. I also want to say that, kind of tagging on to what you were saying there, if this is about relationships, I would not be surprised if we see a lot of endings and beginnings, right? Pluto is about death and rebirth. Things have to end in order for new things to begin. New things can't begin until the old things end. And as we've been dealing with Mars transiting through Capricorn, we may be looking at who are the people we feel responsible for? Where are our responsibilities weighing us down? Who's taking responsibility for us? What's going on there? And as it makes that contact, this could be saying, I'm ending some of my, if not the relationship itself, I might be ending, surrendering up, letting go of the things I have been responsible for. This is now your job. I'm not going to be responsible for that anymore. Or this is my job. I'm not letting someone else do this for me anymore. I think getting clarity about our boundary lines with what do you do for me and what do I do for you and what does each of us do for ourselves would be really helpful, because if not, then there could be some throwing the saying is over here, I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I'm just done with everything. And because of Mars' ability to be a bit impetuous and explosive at times, especially if we have felt that a lot of this has been trapped up, we haven't been able to move with that Mars in Capricorn. We may just feel like, that's it, I'm done, it's over, boom. And so I'm expecting to see a lot of breakups unexpectedly kind of popping and to the surface. And perhaps they aren't unexpected beneath the surface, but that doesn't mean the rest of us saw them. But by the same token, there's also the opportunity for a lot of new relationships, be they professional, platonic, romantic. This idea of that Venus is here, and it's with Aquarius. It's a time to find the like-minded people. It's a time to connect. It's a time to get on board with what I want to transform and how do we, transmute the negative in our life and make it good, make it juicy again, get excited about where I'm moving. So I think it's a great time for casting off the doldrums, getting kind of a vitamin B shot in our arm, a reboost about how we feel about relationship and who are the people who make us feel or support us in being empowered.
Absolutely. And what I like about Aquarius too is like the energy is quite open, and usually you can communicate, you can share. Sometimes you might start to intellectualize things too much, but still it's like a more open place for those energies to manifest and to deal with than the other signs or the feminine signs and so on.
Yeah. And then there's the square with Jupiter, which, so many people in the astrological world love to talk about Jupiter as being the great benefic and it's so wonderful, and I'm always kind of on the other side of the fence going, yes, it's like Santa Claus has come. This is great. But I also feel that with Jupiter, we can get caught up with excessiveness and, not really seeing the individual tree that we are impacting because we're so enamored with the whole forest, that bigger running and the big thing is not recognizing our own needs, our own limitations. Like limits can be there for a good reason. We don't stay up all night. Well, some of us don't stay up all night for weeks on end because the body needs sleep and rest. So some limits serve a purpose, and I don't think Jupiter likes to see that. And so, especially as Mars is approaching that square to Jupiter, I think emotions can be, we can get hot-headed, we can get impulsive, we can be thinking that I can take on the world, I can do anything I set my mind to. And yes, one certainly can, but that doesn't mean I can do it all today in a single 24-hour period. Like not wanting to take the time to plan, to set things out, to kind of pace ourselves could be a real issue. And then as Venus squares it, the same goes true for food and money, and that idea of I need to compensate. I deserve to treat myself. I've been working so hard. It's been a rough couple years. And so I'm not saying it's all has to be that way. I'm not trying to sound doom and gloom, but I do feel like this is a very intense square because it's not just Mars and Venus squaring Jupiter. It's Mars, Venus still separating from its conjunction to Pluto. So it brings Pluto into the mix, making that square. And so I feel like this could be really intense and it could be the sort of the explosion that needs to happen so we can maybe see more clearly what is it that needs to end? What is the change that we need to be working on? I think it's interesting that all this is happening with the background of anywhere from 4 to 5 planets, depending on the day you're looking at, hanging out in Aquarius. So there's definitely a line with our authentic self, authenticity, our priorities, like all those ideas is kind of, I almost feel like it's that explosion that needs to happen. And that will help us to see more clearly where we've been maybe clouded or not looking. What do you think about Jupiter in this mix?
Well, I think, like you said, many astrologers think Jupiter is only fun and joy, but Jupiter can also, I mean, it expands things and it can make things huge, also trouble. So with Jupiter in also a Earth sign, with Uranus in the Earth sign, there's something about Earth here that's trying to balance all this air energy. And when I think about Aquarius, I also think about the rhythm of life, about the nervous system, about exhausting yourself with all those ideas, with too much mental activity, but really forgetting like the rhythm of life, the reality that we need to look at. And there I think that Jupiter can be problematic if you are not careful with it. It can be inspiring, of course. It can make those plans grand. It can make those dreams and visions grand, but it can also make you forget your limits really much, and also
Yeah.
your physical limits.
And this reminds me of what you started us off with that Sabian symbol about, bravely facing the disappointment. This could also be saying that for some of us, that disappointment might be the recognizing I have to scale back. That I've had plans that were too large, that were not sustainable, and now I have to get more, roll up my sleeves and get more practical, and either let certain plans go because they're not going to manifest, they're not going to grow right now, or scale back maybe my timeline or my, what I'm expecting in terms of financial output. There's something about the reality of the day not measuring up to or equaling out the fantasy, the plan that I had in my mind. And that's just part of life, but in the moment that can be very disappointing. It can feel like failure, or it can feel very disillusioning of will I ever get to that goal. But I kind of feel again like this can serve us really well if we work with it.
Yeah, a
Or
bit of redirecting the energy, and that might be into something really great, good.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned before we started recording, I want to tag into that. Everything is clustered. We have everything in 5 signs, and the faster moving planets are at the beginning of this. So, like, they're going to be in these 5 signs for quite some time. We've got a few weeks of dealing with everything is moving from Aquarius through the signs to Taurus. And so, where in your chart is this hitting? Most of us are going to have either one hemisphere and possibly even just one quadrant of our chart where the themes around those areas of life are super impacted. And here we go again, getting pulled like Gumby, feeling this impact. So it can be really useful to think about all these themes in regards to those houses that are being super targeted by the transits. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Any other ideas we need to share before we move into tips? Are you ready to go there?
I think we can go to tips now.
Sure. I'm going to jump in first. I have 2. The
Oh,
first is, and they're kind of connected. They dovetail together. So the first is, thinking about this Mars that has been probably not so happily hanging out in Capricorn the last roughly 6 weeks. As we get ready for it to ingress, I would say first reflect on what has been your source of irritation over the last 6 weeks. Is it a specific person or people? Is it a feeling blocked in some way? Where are you not able to feel that you are moving forward? Because I feel like with Mars, it's always about, I need to be in movement. I need to have autonomy, independence, and movement. And when those get blocked, that's usually the source of our irritation, our frustration, our anger, even though we're not looking at it that way. So before we have the explosion, maybe we can prevent the explosion by getting some clarity about what's irritating, what's chawing at the back of my mind about these things, or the front of my mind about these things. And then working with that, getting practical. Before Mars hits that square to Jupiter, and Jupiter's in the Earth sign of Taurus. So before that happens, all right, if this is the thing or the person or the issue that is bothering me, what is one thing we can change, we can do to take a step forward away from that thing, or a step towards improving that thing? And I don't just mean saying to someone, you need to get your act together, or I need you to stop doing this. Like, getting very concrete, practical about a step and action that you can take to move away, I think is going to help dissipate so much pent up emotion that then it'll be easier to deal with whatever the bigger issues are that are coming our way. Okay, so that's my action plan, and I share it for anyone else who wants to give it a shot.
That's really good action plan. Very important, I think. The fixed signs, or if you have planets in fixed signs right now, you will have a lot of squares to them from this Aquarian energy. So you can check out where you have planets in the beginning of Leo, in the beginning of Scorpio, beginning of Taurus, because there's things happening with those. But also we have so much concentrated Aquarian energy. In which of your charts house do you have all of this energy? I mean, where can you actually look outside the box, think outside the box, find new solution, what you want to do with it, what you want to change here, what's your vision for the future? You might have some surprises.
That is really insightful. I'm going to sit with that. And I'm trying to be open and welcoming of the surprises, as unexpected as they may be. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up. So curious to hear how other people are being impacted and feeling about these aspects, this energy. So please join us online. Use the comment section on YouTube. If you're listening to us through the podcast, through the audio platform, you can also email us, or you can hop over on YouTube and just put your comments in, whatever is easier for you. If you are a YouTube follower, don't forget to hit the bell to be notified when we're back on the 25th for the full moon in Virgo. If you haven't already subscribed, that really helps us out. If you can take a second to subscribe, hit the like button. All those things are really useful for us in moving forward and expanding the program. So I guess with that, it's happy new moon.
Happy new moon.
Thank you for joining us in this week's Astro Chat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. Astro Chat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support Astro Chat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.